Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwadner, and welcome to our webinar. It is my distinct pleasure and privilege to present to you our guest of the day, Eric Lofholm. He has been a prolific and creative sales trainer for the past 20 years. He has trained thousands of salespeople in hundreds of organizations around the world. And he is, in my book, a skills building champion, but also he has a great knowledge and deep insight into what motivates salespeople. And today we're going to talk about 7 ways to motivate your sales team. And I invite everybody to participate by asking questions as you think of them. So please communicate. Let's make this interactive. Eric, you have the floor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gerhard, and I'd like to welcome all of you to a very special webinar, and I want to take a moment and acknowledge all of you for being here. The fact that you're here, you are investing this time in yourself to become the best sales leader and manager and coach of your team as possible. So great job for being here. I'm excited to share 7 of my all-time top ideas to motivate your team. I want to create the possibility of a breakthrough for you and your team for the content that I'm going to cover today. As I'm sure you all know, all it takes is one idea to create a breakthrough. And for these 7 ideas you're going to learn, you're going to have the benefit of these ideas for the rest of your career. There are 3 themes to the webinar. They are culture, listening to your team, and improving their sales skills. Shifting any one of these can create a breakthrough. Shifting all 3 could create the possibility of transformation for you and your team. Idea number 1 is intention. To have the intention to have a motivated team. And I want you just to check in with yourself right now. Has that been at the forefront of your mind? The way you've been running your team, have you been thinking about, okay, I want to have a motivated culture? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. And if you haven't, I want you to consider that as a shift that you can make in your intention with your team. Idea number 2, this is my favorite idea. And we're going to go a little deep on this one. And it is continuous sales improvement. And it's the mindset of each member on your team getting better each day and each week. I'm sure you're all familiar with the fact that Kobe Bryant recently passed away, and he had a mindset that has now become a little famous, and it's the Mamba mentality. And the Mamba mentality is simply getting better every day. And what's interesting about Kobe is that he ended up winning 5 NBA championships. At one point, he was the MVP of the NBA, so the top league for basketball players in the world. And for that year, he was the best player. Yet he still had the mindset to continue to work on his skills. And in my experience, a lot of sales professionals, they hit a certain level of success and they lose that motivation to continue to work on their skills. And so I want you to think about this possibility for your team, is having a culture where everybody on the team is working on their skills on an ongoing basis. And we'll go a little deeper on that in just a little bit. I know many of you are meeting me for the first time. Some of you may know me. As Gerhard mentioned, I've been training professionally all over the world full-time for over 20 years. I love working with sales professionals. And prior to starting my own training company, I was very successful. My first job that I ever had right out of high school, I made over 100,000, which I'm sure you'd all agree it's pretty good for my first job. Although I didn't make over $100,000, that would have been a great story. Now I made over 100,000 hamburgers. I was a cook at McDonald's, and this is a photo of me, of course, when I worked there. And I was going to community college at the time. You're supposed to go to community college for 2 years. I went to community college for 5 years and never graduated. I never quite got that 2-year AA degree. So I was in my early 20s, not exactly on the fast track to success. I had no goals, no direction. I was just kind of wandering aimlessly through life. And I ended up in sales. This is a photo of me at my first sales job. I was very stylish back then. As you can tell, I had my purple pants and my matching plaid socks. And at this company, for the first year that I worked there, I was the bottom producer. And I missed quota. The quota was 10,000 a month in gross sales. I missed the quota 2 months in a row, and we had a 3 strikes and you're out rule. So my manager pulled me into the office and he wrote me up and he said, Eric, you've got 1 more month to hit your quota or we're going to let you go. And he said, selling is not for everybody, Eric, and it's probably not for you. And I can relate with any sales reps, whether they're top producers or just getting started, but I really have a heart for people if they're in a place where they're struggling in their sales, because I'm not a naturally born sales superstar. So I was about to get fired from my job, and I created the intention. The intention increased my results, and I was introduced to Dr. Donald Moyne. Dr. Moyne is one of the top sales trainers in the history of the world. He's written many extraordinary sales books, and he came into my life and he began to mentor and coach me. I affectionately call him the Obi-Wan Kenobi of sales training, if you're familiar with Obi-Wan from Star Wars. And Dr. Moyne began to share with me his ideas. The quota was 10,000 in gross sales. That next month I did 10,500, meaning I made quota by 1 sale. And the following month I did 51,000. I went from worst to first in 60 days, and I've never looked back. I've gone on to do millions and millions of dollars in sales. And what I learned from that experience is that selling is a learned skill. What made the biggest difference for me, so here's your next golden nugget, was improving the quality of my sales presentation. And I want you to think about your reps right now. And I want you to think about, have they mastered their sales presentation? And likely your reps are delivering a repetitive presentation, right? They're selling the same product, presentation after presentation after presentation. And it really makes sense to me if they take the time out and they master that presentation. And so this is what Dr. Moyne helped me with, was how do I improve the quality of the presentation, which instantly made my sales skills more effective, and it was key in catapulting me to 5 times quota. I then went to work for Tony Robbins. I'm sure you've all heard of Tony before. I was employed by Tony for 3 years, and then I branched off in 1999, started Eric Lofholm International. We're a global sales training organization, and our mission is to help people make more sales. Now, as I continue on with a few more pieces to my story, this all ties into this distinction of continuous sales improvement. So I got better at the first job. I continued to work on my skills. I sprungboard that. I went to work for Tony Robbins. I started my own business. I started doing business with people like Les Brown. This is a photo of Les speaking at one of my seminars. I kept working on my skills, just like Kobe started doing business with people like the great Tom Hopkins, one of the top sales trainers in the history of the world. I kept working on my skills, and I ended up getting on the Get Motivated stage. This is the stage that Zig Ziglar was on when he was alive. That's a very, very prestigious stage in my industry. And the key to this was continuous sales improvement. And I see a lot of salespeople, they just don't have this mindset. They work on their skills to a point, and then it's like, okay, I've got my skills where I need to get them. And I've seen what a difference this has made in my life. And so if you develop a culture of continuous sales improvement within your organization, I was talking to a sales rep this morning on a coaching call, and he's struggling right now. And he shared with me he's struggling with his prospecting. And I asked him about his product knowledge. And he said, some of the products I really have down, but I really need some help in the area of product knowledge. And he really, at this stage of his career, he's been with the company for 10 years. He really should have his product knowledge down. And if he's struggling in the area of prospecting, his sales manager really needs to know that. Now, I don't know if his sales manager knows that or not, but continuous sales improvement provides a solution to a lot of sales challenges. I live in Rockland, California, which is a small town just outside of Sacramento. I have 4 teenagers. This is my wife, Heather, my 2 stepdaughters, her 2, and my 2 kids. If you've ever seen the show, The Brady Bunch, that's the life that I am currently living. I have 2 outcomes for the webinar today. My first outcome, I want to share with you my 7 top ideas to motivate your sales team with the potential of creating a breakthrough for you, creating a shift in the way that you work with your team. My second outcome is to invite you to consider one action step designed to help you win. And at the very end of our webinar today, I'll share with you what that action step is. And I'm really excited to share that with you at the end of our webinar. So I want to go a little deeper on continuous sales improvement. Now, this is my son here. He's obviously dribbling a basketball. He's age 8 or 9 in this photo. And I taught him continuous sales improvement as it applies to basketball. This is my son at age 14. He's obviously dribbling 2 balls here in the photo. And my son predictably got better. So it wasn't maybe he'll get better. He could get better. I hope he gets better. No, he predictably got better because he worked on his skills. And this is a metaphor for every sales rep on your team. Every single rep on your team, they have this potential that exists inside of them that will come out as they strengthen their skill set, their product knowledge, their mindset, their consistency. Every one of those areas are things that they can predictably get better at. So here is one of my solutions. And I believe this is going to become a movement. I believe that over time, you will start hearing this. Other sales trainers will model what it is that I'm sharing with you right now. Being in the game for over 20 years, I've worked with a lot of sales professionals, done a lot of training, a lot of different industries, and I've tried a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, an idea is really only as good as your ability to execute. So if we talk to your team about getting better, and everyone's going to agree that's a good idea, but what does that actually look like? What's the practical application? And this is what I've come up with. 15 minutes to an hour per week for each rep to work on their skills. And what's great about this, when you introduce this idea to your reps, they're going to go, you know what, that's doable. That's true. I'm driving in my car anyway. Even if you have reps that work from home, at some point they're going to get in their car. They can put the earbuds in when they're working out. And the idea is that ideas compound. Knowledge compounds. And so when they work on their referral skills this week, now they add that to their success tool belt. Next week, they work a little bit on objection handling. The following week, they work on their presentation skills. The following week, they work on their closing skills. And you're getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and then boom, you have a breakthrough. Here's my experience of training. Your reps, they learn, breakthrough. They learn, breakthrough. When I was a bottom producer at my first job, and then I went to a top producer within 60 days, I was on the verge of that breakthrough, but I couldn't see it because my sales results showed poor results, the bottom producer. But I was right there on the verge. So I was learning. It wasn't showing up in the results, and then boom, I had a breakthrough. So one of my clients, his name's Sean, he has a sales team of 600 people. So I am training Sean to train his team to put in 15 minutes to an hour a week. So here's the math. 150 hours to 600 hours of skill building a week. Here's what that looks like. Over the course of a year, it's 7,500 hours to 30,000 hours over the course of 10 years, here's the math of 15 minutes to an hour a week with a team of 600 people. It's 75,000 hours to 300,000 hours over 10 years. So I want you to imagine right now, everybody on your team works on their skills 15 minutes to an hour a week. I think you'd come to the conclusion that I've come to. They'd get better. And it's going to help you become more successful. And you're going to be the hero, right? Because your team's getting better, the culture is motivational, the results are up, and who gets credit for the increase? You, as the sales leader, get credit for the increase. So I taught this to an individual rep who works for Aflac. They have about 60,000 reps. My client was number 6,000. I got him to number 45. And he still to this day works on his skills on a regular basis. That's on an individual basis. This client's a real estate agent. He was at 125,000 in income. Within 1 year, we got him to 205,000, an increase of $80,000. And I've instilled the mindset of continuous sales improvement into the way he does his business. All right, your next golden nugget is encourage him. Now, I think you all intuitively know that, but I want to give you the opposite. Okay, encourage them, don't discourage them. And I want to drive this point home with a personal story and a story about Mike Tyson. Now, this is a famous photo. Some of you are familiar with the story of Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight used to be the coach of the Indiana Hoosiers in college. And there was this famous story that was national news of him throwing a chair. He was having a temper tantrum. And Bobby Knight was known for intimidating his players. Now, Bobby Knight was also known for being a winner. He coached the Olympic team. He won NCAA championships. He's one of the all-time winningest coaches in basketball. So you could say, well, him intimidating his team worked for him. I'm not going to dispute the results. It's just not the way that I approach sales. It's not the way that I was developed. So back when I was the bottom producer, the photo there on the right is the owner of the company. His name is Dante Perano. And when I was Dante's bottom producer, his bottom guy, one time he came to me and he said, Eric, one day you're going to be a great salesperson. And I was like, huh? I'm thinking to myself, I'm his bottom producer for an entire year. He's telling me one day I'm going to be a great salesperson. And Dante saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And he saw work ethic, and he saw desire, and he saw motivation. All I saw was the lack of results. And so I was feeling really bad about myself. But Dante saw positive in me, and ultimately I became a good salesperson, and then a great salesperson, and then an elite salesperson. But Dante believed in me before I believed in myself. So I want to encourage you to believe in all of your reps, even your bottom producers. I want you to believe in them. Hold the belief for them about the potential that they can accomplish. And this is what my coach, Dr. Moyne, and I still coach with him to this day. He has always coached me from encouragement, from believing in me, from finding the good in me. And now that I have the confidence myself, I do appreciate his belief in me, and I will always, receive that encouragement. But in a way, I don't need it anymore because now I have it within myself, and I've learned how to be my number one cheerleader. My number one cheerleader. So this is Mike Tyson. And I'm sure you're familiar with Mike Tyson. And at one time, he was the number one boxer in the world. But do you know how Mike Tyson became the number one boxer in the world? This is a movie that you can watch on Netflix. And it's fascinating because Mike Tyson was a thug on the streets of New York. And he met Customato. Customato, that's a photo of him right there. Customato took Mike Tyson in and allowed Mike to live with him. And he started telling Mike, you're going to be a great fighter. You're fast, you're quick, you're going to be champion of the world. And Tyson's like, what is this crazy guy talking about? Customato spoke becoming the heavyweight champion of the world into Mike Tyson, and he became that. If it was not for encouragement, we would not be talking about Mike Tyson today. So you are, as a sales leader, as a manager, as a VP of sales, whatever your role is in your company, business owner, whatever your role is, you're in a position of authority with your team. And how you use that position of authority is vital. It's critical. And you have a huge opportunity to encourage your team, be that cheerleader for them, see the greatness that exists inside of them. All right, here's your next golden nugget. Improve self-image. Now, this can be applied to you individually as a manager. This can also be applied in training your reps. So one of my clients sells insurance, and he's in commercial insurance. He makes a little over $100,000 a year, and he wants to go to $500,000 a year in income. And so I'm coaching him to get him there. And I was talking to him one day on a coaching call about how he views himself. And he goes, I view myself as a pretty good commercial insurance professional. His name is Bill. I said, Bill, here's the challenge. I said, to go to 500,000, you're talking about elite. And if you don't view yourself as elite, you're probably not going to go after your biggest opportunities, because certain size accounts, really large accounts, well, in his mind on an unconscious level, he's thinking, well, that's for a top insurance professional. And he doesn't at the time resonate with that. So one of the ways that I'm coaching him is to improve his self-image, view himself as elite. And one way to do that is by applying the principle of auto-suggestion. You can learn more about auto-suggestion. You might know that term from the book Think and Grow Rich. It's where you tell something to yourself over and over and over again. It's a form of self-hypnosis. You know, elite athletes do this. I do this from a sales coaching standpoint, and I'm programming Bill to view himself as the elite sales professional that he is. And I said, Bill, what would an elite commercial insurance professional look like? And he told me all the criteria. I said, okay, I want you to become that. All those things that you said an elite would do, I want you to do that. And he started going after larger accounts. And I believe that he will get to a point where one day he's going to make over $500,000 in income in commercial insurance. Idea number 4, accept responsibility for the results. So right now, you can go look at your sales numbers and you're going to know exactly where your numbers are. Question is, who's responsible? And, you know, you may have competition factors that are really challenging right now that you're up against. You may have challenges with lead generation. You may not have the greatest sales talent on your team right now. There may be forces that are working against you. If you accept responsibility, though, it's empowering, right? To create the results with whatever your lead source is, to create the results with whatever that competition factors are, to create the results with whatever team you've got right now. When you accept responsibility, so it's like, I, Eric Lofholm, am responsible for the results in my company. And so I want you to consider that. And I'm sure many of you already have that mindset, but maybe some of you have a different way of thinking. Idea number 5 is to get to know your reps. And this is something I'm passionate about, and I have a lot of experience with this. I added it up one day. I do 1 to 5 one-on-one coaching sessions per day with clients all over the world. I've done over 7,000 one-on-one coaching sessions where I'm getting in the mind, in the head of a sales professional and finding out what's going on. What are their fears? What are their challenges? What are their struggles? What are their beliefs? And I really believe in you taking time to spend one-on-one with your reps and ask them questions to get to know them better. Now, I know that you might be stretched thin with maybe you're a producing sales manager, maybe you have other responsibilities in the company, maybe you're on a big recruiting spot right now where you're spending a lot of time recruiting, but as much as you can, spend that one-on-one time to get to know your reps and get to understand them, because there's things that you'll learn about them that you just can't learn any other way. So I want you to meet Nicole. Nicole's one of my clients, and she happens to sell solar. And I've worked with all different types of industries. And so we get on this coaching call, and I'm talking to Nicole and just asking her about her life and what's going on. And she tells me, she says, I'm not a same day closer. And in all my years of doing this, I'd never heard that before. I said, you're not a same day closer? She goes, nope. I said, what does that mean? She goes, it means that I generally don't get the sale at the end of the first appointment. Now, Nicole sells solar, and that you're probably familiar with it. That business model is designed to ask for the order and close the sale when you're on the spot there. It's a one-call close. And I said, well, tell me what happened. She goes, well, they end up not buying when I meet with them, and then I go into follow-up mode. And she goes, I am so persistent. I have great follow-up skills, and I eventually close the sale. And I said, well, where are your results right now? She goes, I'm number 2 in the company, and I make a strong, $100,000 plus income. So on the outside, it looks like she's doing great. She's making 6 figures. She's number 2 on the sales team. And so I worked with her and I said, look, this sales presentation is designed for a one-call close. So there's 2 areas that I work with her on. I worked with her on her mindset. And then I worked with her on the language in her sales presentation to guide the prospect to take immediate action. Well, the next month, she had her best month ever. She closed 16 solar units in 1 month. And what's great about this is that Nicole now has these tools on her success tool belt for the rest of her career. Now, this story is a metaphor for your sales team. I believe that every single person on your team right now, every one of them, is like Nicole. They have holes in their game, they have strengths, they have ways that they can improve. And it's not just, okay, get out there and make more calls and work harder. It's working on the skills. If I could drive a point home with you guys today, 15 minutes to an hour a week, working on the skills, week in and week out, believing in your reps, even the ones that are struggling. If they're on your team, as long as they're on your team, it's you believing in your team and having the culture of improvement, the culture of motivation, the culture of working on your sales skills. And you do these things, and you're going to create more wins. And who's going to get the credit? You're going to get the credit. You are going to be the hero because you're going to be the one. You're guiding the ship. This is your team. You're going to see the results just like Nicole saw the results for her. Idea number 6 is to really listen to your team. The easiest way to persuade or influence somebody is to find out what they want and give it to them. This is like sales 101. Apply sales communication strategy to your sales reps. In the sales process, we build rapport. We then identify needs, and we identify the needs by asking probing questions. Get to know your reps. Learn what motivates them. Learn what challenges they face. Find out if they believe in the goals you have set for them and the vision of the company. So I want to tell you a quick story about one of my clients. His name's John. He's on a sales team of about 600 people, fluctuates based on hiring and turnover. about 600 people. And when we started working with John, I think he was around 132. Right now, he's 32 in the company. And he asked him to train at the last convention. And he got up there and he shared how he's able to do it. And a big part of it is continuous sales improvement. So I coached John, and I was on the phone with him the other day, and he goes, yeah, we got the annual goals that they expect us to hit. And I said, all right. I wasn't really sure where he was going with it. And he goes, my company's goal for me was only an 8% increase. And he goes, that's way too low. He goes, my goal is way higher than that. And I thought it was an interesting comment that his company gave him a goal, but it wasn't in tune with his self-image was much higher. So if I was managing John, I'm coaching him, so I'm doing it from a coaching standpoint. If I was his manager, I would say, here at the company, we have a formula that we use that determines your goal for the next year. And based on the formula, it's 8%. But John, I actually think this is way too low for you. What do you think? And John would go, oh yeah, it's way too low. Okay, great. Well, what is it that you want to strive for? Now, the company goal was like 850,000. John wants to do a little over 1.1 million. Well, I'm obviously going to manage him differently based on that goal. The point of the story, it's not about the goals from the company. The point of the story is about getting to know your reps and understanding them, because there's a big difference between John producing 850,000 and him producing 1.1. What's interesting in his company, how he went from 132 to, he's now in the top 30. He has that mindset of continuous improvement. And a lot of the reps in his company, the way their model works, they have accounts. They build up the accounts. And a lot of the reps, they're living off those accounts. And they're no longer in a mindset of getting better. And think about it. In his company, you've got all these really strong reps that have built up these big businesses. They've got the skill set. If they just had the motivation, and it comes back to that continuous sales improvement. I got one last idea that I want to share with you guys today, and then I want to share with you a next step that I'm really excited about. I would love to get to know each of you individually. I'd love to have the opportunity to spend some time with you, hear, how are you doing? How's your team doing? Collaborate on some ways that perhaps your team could get better. And I'll share with you that in just a moment. But I want to give you idea number 7. And this is to observe your patterns in how you manage and motivate your team. So I like to drink coffee in the morning. And you have whatever beverage you like, coffee, tea, water, whatever you like to drink in the morning. And so I used to drink my coffee 2 cream and 2 sugar. And I got to thinking one day, what if I went from 2 cream to 1 sugar? I would eliminate 365 packets of sugar a year, 3,650 packets of sugar over 10 years. And over 30 years, I would reduce my sugar intake by 10,000 packets of sugar. And so I made a conscious decision and I changed my pattern. And it went from 2 sugars to 1. And then a little bit later, a month or 2 later, I thought, you know what? Let me try it without any sugar. And so then I did that. I cut out another 10,000 packets of future sugar. So I drink my coffee now 2 cream, no sugar. And it's an example. I'm sure you get it, right? You can all relate with that. Well, that's an example of me changing the pattern. The way we do life, guys, ladies and gentlemen, the way we do life is we do life in patterns. You run your sales team in a pattern. You hire in patterns, you onboard in patterns, good or bad. You run your sales meetings in patterns, good or bad. You train in patterns, good or bad. And there's a massive opportunity for you to take a step back and do self-analysis and look at it and question, why do I do it the way I do it? Why do I run my sales meeting the way I run my sales meeting? Why do I hire the way I hire? And some of these, you're going to have these brilliant answers. You're like, well, I had a mentor and they were great at running sales meetings. And so I modeled theirs. And we have a sales meeting that it would be considered a best practice in our industry. And if that's you, that's awesome. But many of you are like, you know what? My sales meeting is not that good. Or my onboarding process, if I'm honest, is not that good. And this creates a huge, huge opportunity. It has been said the number one thing that determines if somebody likes their job or not is their relationship with the manager they report to. So let's just say at your company, you have 1,000 employees and your sales team is 50 people. And, you know, however many of those report directly to you, maybe they all do, whoever reports directly to you. Well, your sales rep that reports directly to you, it's very possible that how they feel about your company is directly related to their relationship with you. And that's a pretty deep thought to think about. You know, I'm impacting my staff's view of the company. We do life in patterns. Your reps sell in patterns. What is your pattern of how you respond if a rep is underperforming? So right now you got somebody underperforming on your team. They're falling below the minimum standard. What's your pattern? Do you ignore it? Do you reach out to them and ask what's going on? Do you threaten them with their job? You know, how is it that you respond? And is that the best way to handle it? Your hiring pattern, your onboarding pattern, we just went over this a moment ago. Your pattern, like when you get upset, when you're stressed, right? We all get stressed in life. What's your pattern for when you're stressed and how you interact with your team? When we look at our patterns, it creates breakthrough possibilities. Napoleon Hill talks about this in Think and Go Rich. There's a whole conversation in Think and Go Rich about self-analysis. And when we're willing to do this, and we're willing to really take a look at ourselves and how we can grow and how we can evolve and become more successful leaders, this can take you and your team to the next level. Golden nugget: apply best practices to your sales meetings, your onboarding, your hiring, your training, and any other area of your selling. What I'd like to do right now is share with you a simple next step that we can take, and then we're going to open up the call for Q&A. If you have a question you want to ask, you can type it into the question feature, and Gerhard will be on the line here. We're going to stay on for a little bit. We'll do some Q&A with all of you. So my recommended next step, I would love the opportunity to spend 30 minutes with you, just you and I one-on-one, and learn about the biggest motivational challenges that you're facing. So I can share with you from my experience specific ideas that can help you and your team win. I have real solutions that can help you and your team increase your results. I want to share with you 3 possibilities of how I can help you. All the possibilities start with just you and I having a conversation over the phone. So my first idea, what I'm most excited about, is motivating entire sales teams to work on their skills for 50 minutes to an hour a week, just like what I'm doing with Sean's team. And I'd love to talk with you about that possibility of getting everybody on your team excited about working on their sales skills. My second idea for you, this is a book that I wrote. It's one of the most comprehensive books ever written on how to improve the quality of a sales presentation. So I'd love to talk with you about some ideas of things that you can do to strengthen the quality of the sales presentations that your team is delivering. And my third idea for you, I love being a guest speaker and speaking to sales teams. And so I will regularly come on, do a half an hour to an hour on a webinar like this, and I'd love to just to gift you one. And so if that's of interest, that's something that we can talk about. So the next step is just simply a phone call. You can call or text me. The number's right there on the screen, 916-626-1945, or send me an email, eric@ericlofholm.com. My assistant, Vicky, we'll contact you back and we'll schedule a time and just share some ideas of ways that perhaps we can help you increase the sales results of your team. And with that, Gerhard, I'm going to turn it over to you and we can take some questions if we have any questions out there.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. I want to make a couple of comments because I took a lot of notes. The first thing that comes to my mind is that Dr. Donald Moyne was really a brilliant mentor to you, and he was teaching you the skills and the motivation, and you had to believe in you, and he became a mentor. And I cannot emphasize enough, if you do not have a mentor right now, I suggest everybody in the audience get a mentor, because it's got to change your life. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've successfully done is just learn from others. Take the best from a Les Brown, a Tony Robbins, a Tom Hopkins, a Dr. Donald Moyne, and incorporate that into my game. And so I highly, highly encourage all of you to do the same.
So let's open it up for questions from the audience. And the first question I have is, what do you do when you hit a down cycle?
Well, one of the things about selling, my way of looking at it is I focus on activity as opposed to results. And I'm a really big believer in acknowledgement and acknowledging myself. And so sometimes we go out there and we have some fantastic sales opportunities lined up. We swing and we miss. I had a meeting with a decision maker the other day, and I told him, I said, you know, I'm here and I do want your business. I said, but whether I earn your business or not, I'm going to walk out this door and I'm going to pat myself on the back. And I'm going to tell myself, great job for showing up on time. Great job for delivering a quality presentation. Great job for asking for the order. And so my focus is on activity. Obviously, I want the results, and I am goal-oriented and goal-focused. But it's a mindset of acknowledging activity. So I'm winning every day.
Got it. Next question. How do you deal with a boss who has a negative mindset?
Okay, so let's say if I'm a sales professional and I don't have this empowering, motivating boss, most people never change, and every once in a while they do. I remember a sales team that I was on, and I didn't have the most motivating boss, and it would have been nice if that person was more motivating, but they weren't. I focused on what it is that I needed to focus on. One of my favorite quotes is peak performers peak perform regardless of their circumstances. And so expecting somebody else to change, that's a tall order. But we can control our mindset. We can focus on the things, on our attitude and the things that we have control over. So that would be my best advice there.
Thank you. Tell us more about your affirmations and how people can learn about that.
Say it one more time, Gerhard.
Affirmations. Tell us more about affirmations.
Yeah, so we all have self-talk, and we grow up and we have self-talk that is on an unconscious level. We just, however we communicate with ourselves is how we communicate with ourselves. In my experience of doing sales coaching, oftentimes the clients, when I start working with them, they have negative self-talk. And the opportunity with affirmations is to consciously choose what is the conversation that I want to have with myself. I'm a big believer in internal scripts. Change begins in language. Speak as if what you are saying is the truth. And so you know, I would look at just like my one client who I'm training to be an elite commercial professional. And the conversation is, what would that elite commercial professional look like? And what are the changes? What's the self-talk? And so it's lining up the person that you want to become with that internal dialogue. It's challenging to say, hey, I want to become a top producer, and then on the other hand, say I'm not good at prospecting. The mindset of a top producer, they wouldn't say I'm not good at prospecting. They would change the language. They would say, how can I get better at prospecting? They would say, each day I'm getting better and better at prospecting. They would develop a new mindset. Mindsets are like clothing. I can take off my sport coat, I can put on a sweater. I can take off my sweater, I can put on a button-up shirt. And so our mindsets, they're not fixed. They can be changed, and we can evolve those mindsets. And one technique on how to do that is through affirmations.
Thank you. The next question, when you say teams should work on sales skills, what are some of the things that teams or individuals can do to improve on a daily basis, videos or materials you suggest we read or do on a daily basis?
Well, I've been, like I said, I've been working with sales teams and individuals for over 20 years, and it really comes down to execution. And there is more content out there than we could ever listen to. You know, you go to YouTube and there's just thousands and thousands of hours that can be listened to. Some of you have in your company libraries, you have tremendous content, but hardly anybody's going through it. And so there's the content, and then there's the culture, and then there's the strategy. So I love this idea of the 15 minutes to an hour a week. And I love listening to audio, or sometimes it's listening to video. Driving in my car, I got a YouTube video that's playing, and I've sold myself on this idea that every time I listen, it makes a difference. Every audio I listen to, everything counts. And another thing that I do is I consume valuable content with repetition. So I don't just say, well, I'm going to listen to it one time. If it's a brilliant piece of content, like Tony Robbins interviewed Jay Abraham, and I love that piece of content, and I listened to it literally 17 times. So it's consuming content with repetition. It's consuming content in some type of a system, and it's really buying into this idea of continuous improvement. Now, what should somebody listen to? Well, I teach inner game, outer game, and action. Inner game is mindset, belief systems, comfort zones. And I know, Gerhard, you're huge on mindset, and mindset is a critical piece. And then the outer game is the how-to techniques. So how do you handle an objection? How do you get a referral? How do you close? Every how-to technique can be learned. So going through content that teaches the how-to content. And then the third type of content is action. You know, motivating content to get you to go out there. You know, there's certain people we listen to that are motivators. We just get like, we're ready to go run through a brick wall. We're so excited. People like Art Williams, one of the all-time great motivators. People like Les Brown. And it just, you know, I'm sure you can all hear my enthusiasm as I talk about this idea, because I know in developing salespeople how powerful it is when what really motivates a salesperson is they're seeing improvement. Part of it's making more money, but when they can see their growth, when they can see they're getting better, when they know they closed that sale because they worked on their skills, like that's extremely motivating for a sales professional. And so it's really instilling that belief in your team is just huge.
Eric, I'm curious, how do you deal with a self-limiting belief like a salesperson tells a manager prospecting sucks? How do you change that?
Well, it's one, it's getting into reality with the sales professional and saying, you know, let's look at your goals and let's look at the math. You know, a big part of sales, as you all know, is math. So you're wanting to make $10,000 a month. You have to close this many sales a month. You have to run this many appointments. In order to run those many appointments, we've got to do this much prospecting. And I would work with them on their prospecting skills. You know, if you have content that teaches prospecting, have them go through the content, have them come back and share with you what they're learning. Have them understand that making a statement like prospecting sucks, the challenge with that is they just put a hurdle in front of them, a hurdle that they now have to overcome. Like, selling's hard enough as is, right? And so without putting any hurdles in front of us, it's challenging enough. And when we put a hurdle in front of us like that, with a statement like that, so it's teaching them alternate ways of thinking, and it's also skill building. So I was talking to the sales rep today, and he was telling me about challenges he's having with making phone calls. And I was sharing with him, work on his electronic prospecting, work on prospecting with email, work on prospecting with social media, work on prospecting with texting. Phone calls is one technique, but nowadays, if I call you, Gerhard, it goes, let's say I have your cell phone, it goes to your cell phone. If I Facebook message you or LinkedIn message you, it also goes to your cell phone. If I text you, it goes to your cell phone. If I email you, it goes to your cell phone. So nowadays, all the communications go into somebody's cell phone, and unless you're calling them at their office. And so it's giving them skills, not just saying make more calls. You know, anytime your sales rep says to you, hey, I need help with this, if you can help them solve the problem with real skills. You know, I'm a how-to skill building sales trainer, and that's really who I am at my core. I'm a teacher. And so that's my solution, is giving real tools.
Tell us more about the power of intention.
Well, intention is, it's a really powerful thing. You know, I'm here, Selling Power, put this webinar on for me to come and present to all of you. And Gerhard, I probably didn't tell you this, but you've been on my radar since the mid 1990s. And, you know, I met with your daughter in San Francisco several years ago. That was the very first actual intentional step that I took towards creating this possibility of what we're doing today. All achievement begins in thought. And when we can create a vision for our life, we can create a vision for our future. With intention, we're gonna attract in a different way. If you have intention to get referrals, you're gonna see things differently than if you don't. If you have intention to become the top producer, if you have intention to become financially free, if you have intention to create a motivational culture with your organization, you're going to be attracted to certain things, you're going to be repelled by certain things based on that intention. So what we believe in our mind is huge, and what we focus our mind on. Napoleon Hill said the dominating thoughts of your mind act like magnets, attracting to you what those dominating thoughts are. So Earl Nightingale said, we become what we think about. That was from The Strangest Secret. The question is, what are you thinking about? You know, in my company right now, we're thinking about acquiring 200 corporate accounts this year. That's where our mindset is. So, okay, we're looking for opportunities to fulfill that result. We're crystal clear on our goals and our objectives. And so your thoughts, I can't overstate how important the thinking is and intention is.
How can people learn more about the inner game of selling, as you call it?
Well, anything that you want to learn, you know, YouTube is your friend. So you go on YouTube, you type in sales mindset videos, inner game videos. When we're talking about inner game, we're talking about confidence, we're talking about beliefs. You can go find books on it or chapters on books on it. You can go find coaches that can train you on that. You can go find modules on that. You develop a mindset that I can learn anything. One thing that a lot of salespeople struggle with right now, especially if they're 40 or older, is technology. We're doing this webinar right now, and some salespeople would say, well, webinars would be great, but I'm uncomfortable with technology. That's a mindset. Develop the mindset that you could learn anything. You know, I used to be uncomfortable with webinars, and then I overcame it. Now it's piece of cake. I can do it like it's no big deal. So the mindset that I can learn anything, and there's more content readily available, index content in the world than ever. And that's another very valuable thing to teach your reps. If they're like, hey, I'm not good at prospecting, task them with going on YouTube and going and finding some videos on prospecting and reporting back to you what it is that they learned from those videos.
Excellent. So tell us what people can expect when you do a webinar with them for 30 minutes. What kind of content do you share?
Yeah, so let's say you're listening right now and you have sales meetings. Well, as you all know, your team, they hear you all the time because you're the manager. And there's a huge value in bringing in an outside expert like myself. And you and I are going to talk on the phone in advance of this meeting. We're going to look at your calendar, and maybe you've got an opening 3 Mondays from now at your 8 a.m. Monday morning meeting. So we can do a webinar like this, or we can do a conference call. You know, we'll figure that out. And I'll ask you some questions about your team. You know, what is the message that you think your team would benefit from the most? And you might say, well, they need to take more action. Okay, great. I'll put content together on that. Or they need to close more effectively, or they need to work on their pipeline. Or, you know, I've written 15 books on sales and success. So my knowledge base is deep. So we just have a conversation about your team, and I'll train 30 minutes to an hour. There's no cost to you for that. And it's just an opportunity for me to add value, and I'm investing in my relationship with you. You know, my belief is if I do this training for you, all that can come from it is good. There's no downside. There's no expectation that you're going to hire me in the future. It's just simply me coming from my heart, sharing with your team ideas that I feel will help them. And so, you know, if any of you are interested in that, just contact me for a free consultation, and that could be one of our talking points. And I'd love to do that. I've done over 1,000 of these with teams all over the world, and it's something that I really, really enjoy doing.
How many books do you read during the course of a month?
You know, early in my career, I used to read a lot more than I read now. So I was reading probably 2 books a month. Here's how I'll answer that. I work on my skills every week, and that's either through podcasts, working with my coach. Sometimes it's reading. I do a lot on YouTube nowadays. I do a lot of audio learning on Audible. I'm always working on my skills, working on my own, you know, motivation to keep myself pumped up so I can go out and be the best version of myself. And it's just that cumulative. After, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and months and years and decades, it all starts adding up. And the skill level that your sales reps can get, you know, when I shared with the story about David Laster, I'll put his photo back up on the screen here. He was a gentleman that was at Aflac. He's not at Aflac anymore, but he was there for many years. David has been working on his skills for over a decade. He's 50 years old now. He has a nice 20+ year career as a top producer in front of him that's going to generate millions of dollars in commissions for him. So for David, his whole life has changed from 15 minutes to an hour. Just keep working on the skills, and that's been the key to my success as well.
Well, thank you so much. That was very, very informative, and I want to thank the audience for tuning in. And some people ask whether they could see those slides or whether we recorded it. Yes, we recorded it today. So you can get an email by the end of the day today with a link to the recording so you can share it with your team. I'll let you have the last word, Eric. It was very impressive. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Gerhard. Well, the final thing I'd like to share is I want to end the webinar the way I opened it. And that's for acknowledging you for investing this time to work towards becoming the best version of yourself. So great job for showing up for class today. I also want you to know I'm excited to spend some time with you, get to know you, hear your story, hear any challenge that you're up against right now, or anything that we could talk about that could be of value to you. So I'm really excited to speak with any of you, all of you on the phone here, in a one-on-one conversation. I am 49 years old right now, and I plan on doing this work just like Zig into my mid-70s. So I'm going to be around for several more decades, and I would just love to get to know you and have share some ideas to help you. So thanks again for joining us today, and look forward to connecting with you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.